How we do reading wrap up? Here are all the books that I read in October. I actually had a very good reading month in October. I mainly read romance books. I read 1 fantasy and 2 horror books. I also completely fell head over heels in love with a series that I wasn't sure that I was going to love based on when I first started reading the first book. I felt like the characters were quite young, so I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get into it. However, I was completely wrong and I absolutely loved it, but we will get back to that one soon. Let's start off with the first book that I finished in October. The first book that I finished in October, and that was Wildfire by Hannah Grace. I didn't mind this one. It was okay. I rated this one 3 stars. Again, how I felt with Icebreaker, I didn't necessarily get on board with the female main character. I felt like Aurora in this one was just a bit too spoilt for me, and I definitely preferred the male main character, Russ. I did like it though. I liked the whole camp side of it. I liked that they were out in the wilderness and the things that they were doing with all the kids and stuff like that. I really felt like that added to the story. If you're not familiar with this one, it is about our 2 main characters. They meet at a party where they have a one-night stand, they go their separate ways, and then the next day they bump into each other at the camp where they have both become camp counsellors. This one, there was obviously sort of side stories as well, like stuff that Russ was going through was really difficult to read sometimes, and Aurora had some struggles that she was sort of facing as well. So I did kind of like that aspect of it. I enjoyed to see them sort of their difference, how different each other's stories was, but it was just okay. It was okay. Like I said, it was a quick read, and I think it was a good read to get me started for the month. So yeah. Next is a series you've heard me talk about many times, either on TikTok or on here, and that is the Consider Me series. I keep calling it the Consider Me series, but I don't actually think it's called that. Oh, it just says also by... I'm sure it's called something else, but if I find out, I will start calling it by its actual name. But this is the 4th book. Again, absolutely loved it just as much as the first 3. I was actually really sad when this one finished because I thought that this was the end. However, Becca Mac has released a Instagram post saying that she is bringing out another book next year, and I cannot wait for that one because it is definitely, if you've read this series you'll know, but it's about a couple within the series that I'm desperate to know more about, so I'm excited for that. But let's talk about this one first. This one follows Jackson Riley. He is one of the hockey players that we meet further in the other books, and he has been moved around a lot within his ice hockey career. So he is sort of like he's always been somewhere temporary. He's never sort of settled down and stayed somewhere. So because of that, he has never really made any proper friends, and he hasn't really settled down with girlfriends and things like that. He is a very big player, and he just thinks that he's just going to be here for a couple of months and then he's going to be moving on to another ice hockey team. And then Lennon as well, she comes into it. She runs away from her wedding. However, she does go on her honeymoon just to cool off, I guess. And that's where she meets Jackson. But again, one night stand, they thought that would be it. However, when Lennon starts working for the ice hockey team as a photographer, obviously they are together a lot and the sparks do start to fly. I love the way that Becca Mac writes her books. I just completely fall in love with it. I love the friendship group that they all have, each and every book. I love that the same characters from the other books are so still so much in each other's books, if that makes sense. I just love that, and I just love them, and they're the kind of friends that you aspire to want in your life. It was amazing. 5 stars. This book I'm going to talk to you about is a book that I mentioned at the start of this video. I absolutely fell in love with this series, head over heels, absolutely loved it, even though I didn't think that I would. I'm going to talk about these books together because there's 3 in the series that I read within the month, so rather than doing it in an individual section for each book, I'm just going to talk about them as a whole. So starting off, let me just grab them and spinning around. Binding 13 absolutely loved it. I didn't actually know what I was getting myself into, so I knew it was like a rugby romance. I thought they were like in their 20s. I didn't realise they were going to be so young, so that was going to be a problem for me, that I felt I wouldn't be able to get on board with it because of them being so young. I think Shannon, who's our female main character, she's only 15 at the start of this one, so I was worried I was going to be uncomfortable with it. However, I didn't even notice their ages. I just loved it. This series is so much more than a romance. It just touches on some very difficult subjects. I think that if you're going to be going into this, if you're happy to go in blind like I did, absolutely fine. But if you are sensitive to certain content that could be triggering, I definitely recommend checking the trigger warnings. She does sort of put a warning at the front of each book as well, which I think is very good. But this one, we are following Johnny. He is a rugby player. He is aspiring to be on the top level of rugby, playing for his country. So his whole life is that he has no time for girlfriends, no time for anything else, or he doesn't even eat junk food or nothing. His whole focus is getting to where he wants to be with rugby. Enter Shannon. She is just trying to get by. She doesn't want to be noticed by anybody. She is just trying to slip through the cracks because she has had such a rough life. Her upbringing is really rough, and she has just had a terrible time. She's moved to Thomond College because she has been bullied so badly at her old schools, all her through primary school, secondary school. It comes to the point where she either had to leave the school that she was out of, or she was going to be killed, basically. So she moves to Thomond College, where she runs into Johnny. I won't sort of say how they meet because I quite like the way that they met. But yeah, she changes everything for him. He can't seem to get her out of his head. He just wants to care for her and look after her. Because, like I said, her upbringing is just so difficult. It's bad. It's not great. I just wasn't expecting these books to be as dark as they were. But they just had me hooked. I couldn't put them down. I was reading like 100, 150 pages a day because I just could not get enough. Moving on to the third book within that series, and that is Saving Six. So the first two books are Johnny and Shannon's books, and then we move on to Joey and Aoife's books. Joey is Shannon's older brother. Again, the age thing I thought was going to be a problem. This one does sort of start off with before these two books. So I think Joey's 12 and Aoife, yeah, they're both 12 at the start of this one, but then towards the end they are older. Again, very dark, lots of very upsetting and difficult subjects within this one. This one absolutely broke my heart. I was sat in the corner of my sofa just sobbing because I just loved Joey so much, and I just felt for him. So yeah, loved it. Absolutely love this series. Every single book was 5 stars. I have got the next 2 books within the series, but I'm having a little break. I'm doing a fantasy month this month, so I am having a break from this series, but I'm already very excited to get back to it. On to a book that I just didn't really like at all, and that was That Kind of Guy by Stephanie Archer. I had high hopes for this one because, I mean, look how pretty it is. And the rest of the books in the series are just as pretty, and I was really excited to having them on my bookshelves. They are on Kindle Unlimited, so if I did want to carry on with the series, I might read them on there instead, rather than buying the physical copies. But this one, I did rate 3 stars, and even, I think that might have been a bit too high. I think if I was to read it now, I'd probably change it to 2 stars. It was just very boring. I didn't really get anything from it. I do like a fake dating trope, but this one just wasn't doing it for me. If you've not heard of this one, we are following Emmett and Avery. Emmett wants to become mayor in the small town so he can fix the electrical grid because his best friend has had to move with his little girl who is poorly to another city because the electrical grid can't help with his daughter because she's very poorly, so she needs lots of like medical equipment and machines and things. So they've had to move, so he wants to bring them back, so he wants to be mayor. However, because he's a bit of a playboy, nobody is really going to take him serious as a mayor, so he decides to ask Avery, who they don't get on. They don't really get on, obviously. She wants to own a restaurant that is being sold that she's worked at for years. She wants to own it, but she hasn't got the funds to do so, and she can't get a bank loan. So Emmett says that if she was to do this fake dating thing for him, he would help her out with the money and stuff so she can get a restaurant. So they both get something out of it. Sounds really good. I was obviously hooked by the synopsis of this one, but I just didn't like it. I was just rolling my eyes a lot of the time. It was very cringe. But yeah, a shame. Like I said, I might read more, but we'll see. I'm not in a hurry to pick up any more. Physical copies left to talk about, and then I'm going to talk to you briefly about 2 Kindle books that I read, which I absolutely loved. But first, I'll talk about the fantasy that I finished, and that was The Dagger and the Flame by Catherine Doyle. I love the Twin Crown series. She is one of the co-authors of that series, so I just knew I was going to love this one, and I wasn't wrong. It was so good. It was 2 POVs, and usually if there's more than one POV, I tend to find myself preferring one to the other, but it wasn't like that with this one. I liked both equally. If you haven't heard of this one, we are following our main characters, Sarah and Ransom. Sarah is on the run. She's trying to escape, and she ends up at the tower for cloaks. So there's 2 sort of guilds. One of the cloaks, and they're like thieves, and then the other one is the daggers, which are assassins, and they both hate each other. So she is going there to sort of find answers because her mother has been murdered. She's trying to figure out why, and Sarah has a mark on her head to be murdered by one of the assassins, which is Ransom. But they just kind of connect. They struggle. He struggles to want to, you know, assassinate her because she is very interesting. She has a certain talent and power that he can't seem to get his head around, so he wants to know more about that, so hence why he keeps putting off every time they meet of actually murdering her. But again, really good. Enemies to lovers, everything that I loved. I think I read this one in about 3 days. The chapters were quite short as well, which I feel helps with fantasy reads. But yeah, definite must read. I don't know when the next one is out. I'm guessing it's not going to be next year, probably the year after. But as soon as I finished this one, I was already waiting. I was looking online to see when the next one was going to be out, because I need it. I need the next one in my life. But 5 stars, definitely. The final physical copy that I read was Forever Wild by K.A. Tucker. This is a novella from Simple Wild. So there's a Simple Wild, and then Wild at Heart, and then this one. This is sort of like a Christmas special, like a Christmas bonus. It was sweet. I loved it. I loved being back in Alaska with Calla and Jonah. I fell in love with this series at the beginning of the year. Simple Wild has actually become one of my favourite books of the year. So I was looking forward to getting to this one. It's only 136 pages, and it's all I needed. I just needed to be back there. So I rated this one 4 stars. I didn't give it 5 stars just because it is a smaller book. But yeah, I can move on to the next book in the series now, because I actually bought the next book in the series before getting this one because I didn't realise this existed. But now I can move on to the next one. So yeah, 4 stars. Loved it. The final 2 books are Kindle reads that I read on Kindle Unlimited, and the first one was Dollhouse by John Hunt. I read this one as a buddy read with my sister because we love horror. We love reading horror books together. And this one did not disappoint. It was gross. And I loved it. This one is following our main character. She is taken off the side of the road when she's walking back to campus, and she is taken to a house where she's put in a room that is just full of pink everything. And she is tortured, and the other thing I won't say, but you get what I mean. And yeah, it's just her battling through that, really. She is a very good character to follow. I can't actually remember her name. Let me see if it's on here. Olivia. She was a great character to follow. It was one of those books where she got stronger as time went on, and it comes to the point where she didn't care. She just needed to get out of there, and she would do anything to get out of that house. It was very creepy. It got you guessing as well as to who one of the bad guys was, which I liked. I do like a mystery as well. And this one definitely kept you guessing at the end. Me and my sister kept having theories and talking to each other about what we thought, who we thought it was. We were wrong. But yeah, but there's actually a sequel to this one. So I do think I'm going to carry on with the series because, like I said, it was just good. It was one of those ones that, you know, that has like revenge. And we all love that. If you love your horror, that's the sort of thing you like, definitely think about picking this one up. It's not very long. I think it was like I think it was just shy of 300 pages as well. So a good quick read. Coming to the final book that I finished is another horror, another gross horror. And it was incredible. I loved it. It was easy 5 stars. This is a 4-part series and I am already itching to get into the next book. And that was Depraved by Brian Smith. This one was like a mix between The Hills of Eyes and Wrong Turn. It follows 5 characters, which at first I thought was going to be a bit of a problem, but it wasn't at all. They all end up in the same place, but in different areas. But it is a small town, but not a small town romance. And there are these people that are cannibals. And they sort of have like a festival every year. And they need an offering, which will be people who are outsiders. They don't see outsiders as humans, they see them as meat. But it was so gory and it was so gross. But I just loved it. It was just so much fun. If you're okay with gore and guts and cannibals and all that, then I think you'll enjoy this as well. I've already recommended it to other people who I know will love this sort of thing. I'm not going to go into any spoilers or anything like that. Some people make it out, some people don't. But there was one particular scene that when I was reading it, I was thinking, am I reading this right or am I messed up? And then I reread it again and I was like, no, this is actually happening. Yeah, it was gross. It was absolutely gross. And when I was reading it, I was like, not just that part, I mean the whole thing, all the gross bits. I was just reading it and I was just like, my face was just literally like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. But it was great. I loved it. I'm definitely going to be reading more from this series. Like I said, I recommend it. I do recommend this one if you're into that sort of thing. And it's quite an old book as well. I think it's like 2008. I could be wrong, but I think I definitely would have read it sooner. It's only because we saw it on Kindle Unlimited that we decided to pick up. But yeah, good one. A must read if you're into that sort of thing. Those are all the books that I read in October. A very good month. Like I said, some books that I absolutely fell in love with. Some books that I didn't like so much. But all good stuff. I will be back soon with another video. But if you did enjoy this one, then please like and subscribe if you're not already, because I really appreciate it. I have hit 100 subscribers now and I am just so over the moon with it. I'm just so excited. So thank you so much for everybody who has already subscribed to me, and I will see you soon with another video. Bye.